people's voice. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the people's voice. I am Trey Evans and I am the people's voice. Thank you again for checking out the podcast this week. As always, it is greatly appreciated. As always, let me say thank you to everyone who has taken the time to listen to the podcast today. First, thank you to those who have been listening to the podcast for the last year and a half. Your support has been greatly appreciated. And we continue to hope that we can bring you valuable information. To those who are new to the podcast, welcome and thank you for taking a listen today. We appreciate your time. Hopefully the same, this information that we provide for the podcast is of interest to you, and you will want to listen to the podcast for many more weeks as we continue to go on. In any event, as always, if this information is valuable, we do ask that you subscribe to the podcast. That way you'll be notified when new episodes drop. We put out a new episode every Friday. And then we put out a new video every Friday on YouTube. And that is possibly going to change. I might begin to put out the videos midweek, but as for right now, we're still sticking to our Friday schedule, but we'll make an announcement if we do decide to change that process. But in any event, thank you and welcome. This is the People's Voice Podcast. So today I want to get into the National Anthem of the United States of America. We are coming off of the Independence Day, which is celebrated here in America, where, hit the cough button, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that. We celebrate here in the United States Independence Day, which is the day that has been designated, or I guess based on history, the day that America won its independence from the British colony or the British Kingdom. And in any event, the day is celebrated. And there's always a lot of festivities and festive activities going on to celebrate that moment in history. The reason I'm talking about the national anthem today is because recently a singer by the name of Jill Scott, and if you don't know Jill Scott is a I hate to categorize people, and I don't want to just throw the R&B singer, neo soul singer. She's a singer. I mean, I'm talking about with a capital SANGEER, singer, as they as the old folks would say. Well, not even the old folks, my folks too. But she is a singer, and she recently did a rendition of, I don't want to say a rendition. She did a version of the national anthem, but it had quite a spin to it. And matter of fact, let me play just a short clip of that just to start it out, and then because that'll probably give the foundation so you can hear kind of how she flipped it, and then we'll continue from there. So let me do that first, because I think that'll kind of set that off the right way as soon as I'm able to pull it up here. Okay, let me play this.
Oh, say, can you see by the blood in the streets that this place doesn't smile on you, color
And so this is the version that she did. And if you didn't hear it, I know it's kind of tough to hear some of the beginning lyrics because of the echo effect because she's in a stadium. So she performed this at an event called Essence Fest. Essence Fest is an event that's put on annually by Essence Magazine. For those of you who may not know what Essence Magazine is, it is a magazine dedicated to African American culture and lifestyle and news as well. They put on a fest every year. Jill was performing there, and I'm not sure at what part of the show that she performed this, but she ended up performing it. The video has gone viral and has elicited a lot of conversation. But in the piece that I just played in the beginning, her opening lyrics were, "Oh, say can you see by the blood in the streets that this place doesn't smile on you, colored child." And she goes on. I mean, it's about a 2-minute song where she kind of does her own rendition of it. Why am I talking about this today? Because of this song and how she, in my opinion, cleverly made the song an expression of, or I should say, made the song spoke to the accuracy, if you will, of the plight of African Americans here in these United States. I thought it was just she did it. She just did it a great job with it, and that's why I was playing it. But this song and this video that went viral is what brought me here today to talk about the national anthem. Because as I was kind of listening to the song, I'm like, first of all, why is the national anthem the national anthem? And it's not the national anthem, it's called the Star-Spangled Banner, but it's the national anthem for the United States. And I'm saying, well, why is it? What's the history behind it? Because oftentimes, and this goes for any culture throughout the world, you do a lot of things without even questioning it. Um, in this particular case, as you've heard me say about 3-4 times, the national anthem, because it's so ingrained in me being an American citizen that you don't even really take the time to say, well, wait, why is this the national anthem? And why is it that when A, we have to stand for it, B, why is it so much passion behind it when you start getting into conversations, whether you're for or against standing for it, and I'll talk about a little bit about that. But anyway, today I want to talk about the national anthem, and let me tell you something. Doing the research for this, I mean, you literally just go down a rabbit hole because I started off just trying to figure out, why do we stand for the national anthem, and the amount of information regarding this song and its origins and how it, became part of the crux of American society is quite interesting. I won't go too much into detail because this is a podcast and I don't want to put people to sleep. But I'll give a little bit of everything, and then, as always, I encourage anyone who listens to the People's Voice podcast, do your own research to kind of draw your own conclusions and perceptions, or maybe fill in the holes where I've missed some key moments. So, the national anthem, which is called the Star-Spangled Banner. Now, why is it called the Star-Spangled Banner? Let's start there, right? Because again, like I said before, you just say things because it's part of your natural being. Sometimes you don't question it. The Star-Spangled Banner. Well, why is it the Star-Spangled Banner? Well, it's called the Star-Spangled Banner because of the U.S. flag, or the flag at the time, which had 15 stars and 15 stripes. And those were to represent the states that were in existence at that time. So that's why It's called the Star-Spangled Banner because it was written with that in mind of what the flag represented at that time, the Star-Spangled Banner, right? That's what it is. So that's why it's called the Star-Spangled Banner. So let's just start there. I just want to start from ground zero, and then we'll work our way up. Okay, so when was the Star-Spangled Banner written? Now, the Star-Spangled Banner, and this, like I said, it was so much information that I uncovered regarding this. It really, I had to stop for a second and go, okay, I've got too much information. But the Star-Spangled Banner is credited, first of all, as being published as a poem in 1814. And this was published by Francis Key Scott. Francis Key Scott, or is it Francis Scott Key? Francis Scott Key. Yeah, Francis Scott Key was an American lawyer who at the time wrote this particular poem, which then became published in 1814. Now, he wrote this song, the Star-Spangled Banner, which is now known as the National Anthem here in the United States. He wrote this in tribute or in direct reflect of the War of 1812. And the War of 1812, again, I don't want to get too deep into the woods, but the War of 1812 was the Battle of Baltimore, and you had British armies going against the U.S. Navy. British armies going against the U.S. forces, and they were defending Baltimore, ironically, which I being what Baltimore has become today, at least certain sections of it, it's quite interesting that the War of 1812 still continues today, because in many parts of Baltimore, it's still very much a war zone, but I digress. I won't get too deep into that. So anyway, going back, the Star-Spangled Banner, it was written by Francis Scott Key. I don't know why I keep saying it the other way, Francis Scott Key. It was published in 1814, but it was in commemorate the War of 1812. So that's when it was written. That's why it was written. That's who it was written by. Okay, so now I'm going to fast forward because again, it's a lot of information behind this. I just want to get to the point to why we stand, right? So, written in 1812. Now, in 1916, and I'm reading an article here from, where am I reading this article from? NBC Miami. This is NBC6 South Florida, and they did a great job of kind of detailing the Star-Spangled Banner and how it's become, where it's at today. So anyway, the Star-Spangled Banner was officially recognized for use as it was officially recognized for use by President Woodrow Wilson in 1916. And I say that purposely. It was recognized for use in 1916 by Woodrow Wilson. And a lot of this had to do with where we were at, where America was at as a country. World War I believe, had already officially started, or somewhere we're in the midst of that. And, obviously a lot of patriotism was occurring, and it was recognized for official use by President Woodrow Wilson in 1916. The song became a national anthem, okay, in 1931. So President Herbert Hoover signed the congressional resolution that the Star-Spangled Banner would become the national anthem, okay? So I just wanted to give a little bit of history. I know some people are like, okay, get to the point. I know. Just wanted to give a little bit of history so you kind of understand some of the steps. And again, please, Do research. I know talking to some historians, and they're gonna say you missed this, you missed that. I'm really just trying to get surface with it so I can get to my point. But I wanted to give some background to why the Star-Spangled Banner is at least a national anthem here in the United States. So now let's get to why we stand for it. Going back, so it was first noted that, and again, there were times throughout the 1800s where the national anthem was played by bands and things of that nature. But in terms of modern day sports specifically, one of the moments in history that is noted where the national anthem became kind of the theme of specifically around sporting events and public events was in the 1918 World Series. This was the World Series where the Chicago Cubs and the Boston Red Sox played in the World Series. Now, during the game, during the seventh inning, which for baseball fans, you know this, and people who don't watch baseball may not be familiar with this, they have something called the seventh inning stretch. This is where it's usually a little bit longer, I think, in between breaks because, baseball is a long sport and you're just there forever. But the seventh inning stretch is something that's, very well known in baseball even to today. So anyway, during the seventh inning stretch, they played the national anthem. And this is noted as one of the historical moments in history where the national anthem was played. And when it was played, people, of course, were very much patriotic because, again, this is during World War One, and as I'm sitting here, I'm trying to get the exact dates for World War One. I just like to be accurate, y'all. That's all it is. It's not really, even really prevalent to this conversation, but I like to be accurate when I am given information. But anyway, it was during World War One, 1918. There was a lot of patriotism going on, and so people stood when they played the national anthem at this World Series. So now, once they did this then becomes the norm, right? Not only are they playing the and the World War One was between 1914 and 1918. No, I don't have this information off the top of my head. I gotta Google it just like everybody else. But getting back, I know I detracted. So the song was first played in 1918 at the World Series between the Chicago Cubs and the Red Sox during the seventh inning stretch. From that point, it started to get played at games. This went on for decades. Now, during this time when it was being played, there really was no structure behind it, right? People were just standing and being patriotic and, celebrating the flag and the anthem, which wasn't the official anthem at that time, just out of their patriotism. As we go further on, one of the times or one of the most notable moments that it became mandatory specifically for players on teams was in somewhere between 1967 1968 during the Vietnam War. During the Vietnam War, there was a lot of pushback in the American public about the war. A lot of people were upset about it. A lot of people were upset about it. People were against it. But when it played during the NFL season at that time, the commissioner, who was Pete Rozelle, he made it mandatory when he said that during a game, and I'm reading an article here from USA Today, and I'll read directly from the article. It said that The playing of the national anthem picked up again in 1967. It says, amid the upheaval of the Vietnam War, NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle enforced a policy that players stand at attention during the anthem with helmets tucked under their arms, and they were not to talk, chew gum, or move their feet. And as everyone knows, a few years ago, especially with the Colin Kaepernick situation with the kneeling, this became polarized in terms of professional players not standing for the national anthem. But again, one of the key moments that kind of led to players being required to stand during the national anthem in all sports leagues was this moment here in 1967, 1968, where the NFL commissioner at the time made the mandatory decision that all players would have to stand during the national anthem. Now, that's just the individual players of the sports. What about you as an individual? Why do you have to stand? Well, many people might not know this. And, I didn't know this either. There is actually a law on the books. Okay. This is law. This is from, this is Code 36, Section 301. And it says that, and it's specifically for the national anthem. There's an actual law. It says that during a rendition of the national anthem, and when the flag is displayed, individuals in uniform should give a military salute at the first note of the anthem. So these are people, and these are military folks, have to give a salute from the first note of the anthem and maintain that position until the last note of the anthem. It says members of armed forces and veterans who are present but not in uniform may render the military salute in the manner provided for individuals in uniform. Okay, so again, even if they're not in uniform, this is a law. Code U.S. Code 36, Section 301. I'm reading this directly from the law. Actually, I'm reading this from Cornell Law. I'm on Cornell Law's law school site. And then last but not least, and this is for civilians, right? All other persons present should all other persons present should face the flag and stand at attention with their right hand over their heart. Men not in uniform, if applicable, should remove their headdress, that's your hat, with their right hand and hold it at their left shoulder, the hand being over the heart. It then goes on to say, finally, when the flag is not displayed, all present should face towards the music, act in the same manner they would if the flag was displayed. This is an actual law in the United States. So let's go back. My whole point of this is because I wanted to find out, why do we stand, right? And, I talked about sports specifically because this is where we see it the most, right? If you've seen a game on TV or if you've been to a game, please rise for the singing of the national anthem. And everybody stands. Well, not everybody, but, especially these days. And then they sing the national anthem, and some people put their hand over their heart and they do all the type of things. Guys will move their hats, women will move their. There's a lot going on, but there's a reason behind it. And that was my whole point, is that, so much is done without even thinking because it's tradition or because this is what we've always done. But there's actually reasons behind it. So let me just go back. So this law that's here, it's what they call it's a law that's on the books, but it's not enforceable. It's called a suggestive and not regulatory in nature. So it's more of a suggestion. So, nobody's going to, if you're at a game or something and you don't stand or you don't follow through with this, nobody's going to lock you up, obviously. But there is an actual law on the book. So I kind of wanted to make that point. But and also wanted to discuss just quickly that the national anthem that you hear, which is only one verse, right? The full national anthem, the full Star-Spangled Banner, written by Francis Scott Key, is 4 verses. And in recent years, as people have begun to really analyze this, well, let me just give a little bit of context. So Francis Scott Key, I said he was an American lawyer, but he also was a slave owner, and he was also pro-slavery, right? So I just want to give you that before I give you this. So as I said, there's 4 verses in the national anthem. In the 3rd verse of the national anthem, there has been a lot of controversy in the last few years as people have started to actually read this, right? Because again, you've been doing things so long that you don't even take the time to read this. But there's actually, in the 3rd verse, there's a controversial, or has been some controversy, I should say, around that 3rd verse, because in that verse, and I'm looking at it here, I'm reading this here from AmericanHistory.com. It says their blood, this is part of the 3rd verse, their blood was washed out, their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave. Hireling means somebody who does menial work, does, low wage work. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. Now, many people have analyzed that and, said that that was towards the slaves who obviously in 1812, 1814, slavery, chattel slavery, and specifically here in the United States was still very much prominent. Many people have said that, that was that was against, he was speaking against the slaves because many slaves had gone towards the side of the British to help with the British in terms of not, to help try to defeat the United States, but also to gain their freedom. But I wanted to point that part out of it as well, that there are actually 4 verses in the national anthem. And the only verse that's ever sung most of the time, all of the time, is the 1st verse, the oh, say, can you see? So it's a lot of information, y'all. And I kind of wanted just to get it out there because, like I said, Jill Scott, she did this rendition and, it just popped up everywhere. And I said, I got to talk about it. I just got to talk about it. But to go back, why do we stand for the national anthem? Or why is it something that's suggested? Number one is because most of the sporting leagues do it, which started back in 1918, really got enforceable in 1960, in the 1960s, late 1960s, 1970s, during the Vietnam War by the NFL. And then it becomes tradition, right? It's something that you do. And then on top of that, there's an actual law on the books that requires you, that suggests that you stand and pledge allegiance and do all of these things. So just a little bit of history for you to take along with you for your weekend and for the rest of the week. And hopefully, this information is valuable to you. If you want to check out the Jill Scott video, I'm going to post this when I put up the video. I'll post a link to it. Let me see. Just want to play just a little bit more of it, and then, we'll close out from here. I don't want to play too much because, they'll flag you. Yes, they will flag you. I'll play this.
I'm your memory. Oh, say, does this truth hold anywhere?
I mean, she was, as the kids say, she was in her bag with this song. But let me get to the, to the moment that really, when you, it just, I know it shook me, and I'll just play it and shut
The
up.
land of the free. But the home of the slave.
I mean, she went off. So if you didn't hear that last line, she said, "This is not the home of the free, but the home of the slaves." Jill Scott, round of applause to you. That definitely created conversation, and I thought capsulized, what is the thoughts of many African Americans here in this country. So thank you for that. But in any event, as always, I do hope this information was enlightening. And if so, we encourage you to leave a comment. You can leave a comment on any of our social media channels. You can reach us you can reach me at I am Trey Evans. That's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and also on LinkedIn, Trey Evans on LinkedIn. And then you can also reach us at the People's Voice Podcast, which is on Instagram. But as always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the People's Voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute.
I am Trey Evans, the
People's Voice.